I think she's probably been put in there because, according to Donald Trump, she's a 10. You know that's what it is.
I want to be clear, though. It's not her first job. It was her first press briefing. She worked in the previous Trump administration.
Caroline Leavitt just exposed The View on live TV, and the hosts couldn't handle it. From Joy Behar's meltdown to Whoopi Goldberg's failed damage control, this was a disaster for them. Let's break it all down. You know The View thrives on controversy, but this time, they crossed the line. The moment Caroline Leavitt stepped into her role as Trump's press secretary, Democrats wasted no time launching their attacks.
That there will be no wokeness here.
Oh, yeah.
Let me explain something to you, because without that wokeness, you might not have that job.
Yeah.
Because women were not invited to that table. Mm-hmm. Women were not invited to many tables in this nation. The reason we fought and busted our behinds to make sure that you didn't have to worry about this. And now to hear you talk about it and to hear anybody talk about the wokeness was put in place for a reason. Because black people couldn't get into colleges. Because women could not get into the colleges they wanted to go to. This is all women. Yeah. See, this is not black, Asian women. This is all women. Women were not invited to this party. It was a man's world, and we busted our asses to make sure that this was a person's world. So please stop using that phrase and talking about, because you don't understand what you're saying. Mm-hmm. You're saying about yourself that, you know, hey, that's a terrible thing to be. It's not a terrible thing to be. That's why we fought. That's what we were fighting for, so that you could stand in that podium, so that Catherine Jean-Pierre could stand at that podium. So women of all kinds of colors and ilks, wherever they came from, whatever their belief system was, they had the opportunity to bust down that door.
By the way, I think she's probably been put in there because, according to Donald Trump, she's a 10. You know that's what it is.
I want to be clear, though.
Wow. Joy Behar, who often promotes women's empowerment, completely undermined that message by reducing Caroline Leavitt's success to nothing more than her looks. Instead of acknowledging her achievements, she chose to downplay them in the most dismissive way possible. The hypocrisy couldn't be more obvious, claiming to stand for women's rights while tearing down a young, successful woman simply because she doesn't fit their narrative. But Caroline wasn't about to let that slide. She fired back, making it clear that their double standards wouldn't go unchecked.
On this program yesterday, Joy Behar stirring the pot of controversy after saying this about Caroline.
She's probably been put in there because, according to Donald Trump, she's a 10. You know that's what it is.
Do you want to take this?
So you cannot be attractive and smart? I will try to give Joy the benefit of, well, thank you. I try to give Joy the benefit of the doubt that she didn't see that briefing, because if you saw that yesterday on numerous topics, no big binder, I think she might have had a different impression of this young woman who held her own.
I mean, you would have to give her the benefit of the doubt that she did absolutely no research or reading about anything dealing with Caroline Leavitt before she made that remark. Mm-hmm. Because Caroline Leavitt worked, I mean, she went to St. Anselm College, she worked for WMUR
ran
TV.
For Congress?
In New Hampshire, she ran for Congress at the age of 25, put out a very good campaign. She lost by 8 or 9 points, but she still put on a good campaign. Then she was the press secretary for the Trump campaign, going on TV literally every day.
Well, heavily pregnant and a new mom.
Pregnant. Yeah, she's a new mother. And then she goes out yesterday and gives and this, again, this is speaking very objectively, because I've watched every press secretary since going back to Marlon Fitzwater. Yeah, I'm that old. And she went out there for her very first briefing at the age of 27 years old, the youngest press secretary ever, and did a terrific job of talking about what the president's agenda is.
I said to you in the commercial, there's no way 27-year-old me would have.
Greg Gutfeld from Fox News wasted no time taking a sharp jab at Joy Behar, and it didn't go unnoticed. His remarks quickly became a hot topic, sparking conversations across social media, and let's just say they didn't do Joy any favors. But hey, more on like and subscribe to the channel. Now let's jump back in.
Voters do not agree with these despicable women on The View. They are wildly out of touch with the vast majority of Americans, and frankly, they should seek immediate help, because voters are going to re-elect President Trump back to the White House very soon, because voters see these trials that are being brought forward against President Trump for what what they are. They are sham show trials. They are election interference in an attempt to imprison President Trump. And the irony in all of this is that Joe Biden and the Democrats and these ladies on The View constantly say President Trump is the alleged threat to democracy, when in fact they themselves are wishfully thinking that President Trump will be imprisoned when he has not been convicted of any crimes. That is the real threat to democracy. Voters see that, and that's why President Trump continues his dominance in the polls, not just with Republicans and independents, but he's also picking up historic gains with Democrat constituencies such as African Americans, Hispanic Americans, and union workers.
Well, Caroline didn't just call out Joy Behar. She went after the Democratic propaganda machine, too. Her message was clear: ride the Trump wave or be forgotten. Once Trump is done, they'll have no scandals or media distractions to keep them relevant. The stunned silence on The View said it all. They felt that reality check. It's obvious they're just jealous of someone younger, sharper, and more deserving of the spotlight.
Thank you. And one more on media coverage of this executive order and the topic in general. What's the White House's view of framing that calls men transgender females or similar rhetoric coming from organizations like the ACLU and GLAAD?
Well, it's been very clear. The policy of this administration is that there are only two sexes, male and female. Pretty simple. Brian Glenn.
Yes. After Joy Behar's crude remarks, Whoopi Goldberg jumped in, trying to spin a new narrative that left Americans stunned. She took on a condescending, motherly tone, attempting to scold Caroline for what she called a lack of tolerance for weakness. But Whoopi wasn't offering wisdom, she was scrambling for damage control. And Caroline, she saw right through it and wasn't having any of it.
Carolyn Leavitt is taking on The View in a massive $500 million lawsuit, and the media world is on edge, according to this massive rumor.
Media are now unloading all their nasty attacks on rising Trump White House star and new press secretary, Caroline Leavitt.
It all started when Sunny Hostin accused Leavitt of being a political pawn, while Joy Behar claimed she only got her job because of her looks.
She's probably been put in there because, according to Donald Trump, she's a 10.
The attacks weren't just political, they were personal. Now, Leavitt is fighting back, arguing these false claims destroyed her reputation. If she wins, it could change media forever. You can watch the full video by clicking here.
In a now viral clip, Whoopi tried to equate civil rights with wokeness, but Caroline saw right through it. She dismantled Whoopi's flawed logic with brutal precision, exposing whether she's clueless or deliberately misleading her audience. And judging by Whoopi's reaction, she felt that burn. If she truly supported women's rights, why didn't she call out Joy Behar for reducing Caroline's success to her looks? Maybe because her so-called moral compass only points left. Instead of holding her co-host accountable, Whoopi used the moment to attack Caroline. Right after the 27-year-old called out the legacy media in her first White House press conference for losing the trust of everyday Americans.
I do like what you're saying, Alyssa, about the lack of messaging. There's no message discipline here. But I love the way she handled it. Because back in the day, journalists in the days of, like, let's say, Walter Cronkite and
people wouldn't have done that to Walter.
People wouldn't have done that, but or Peter Jennings. You always saw and gave opportunity for both sides. It was what journalism was. I think Lester Holt said it best. Our world is different now. Mm-hmm. We're in the world of alternative facts, as created by our favorite person, Kellyanne Conway. And when he was receiving the Edward R. Murrow Award for Lifetime Achievement in 2021, he said this. He said, "I think it's become clear that fairness is overrated. The idea that we should always give two sides equal weight and merit does not reflect the world we find ourselves in. Decisions to not give unsupported arguments equal time are not a dereliction of journalistic responsibility or some kind of agenda. In fact, it's just the opposite. Our duty is to be fair to the truth." And that's what she was doing. She was being fair to the truth. She was trying to get to the facts. She refused to get to the facts. She instead wanted to sort of, it was ad hominem attacks. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And when that happened, you cut the mic. You cut the mic, and that's what she did.
Well, listen. If you don't have anything to say, mm-hmm. You blab. You just go on and 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 on. Right. That's what you hear.
Yeah.
When they don't have anything to hold you with, nothing to make you think about what they have to say, they talk at you, not to you. And that's what she was doing. And she was doing it, and it's not new.
Right on cue, Whoopi played the race card, shifting the focus to identity politics instead of addressing the real issue. Because black people couldn't get into colleges, because women couldn't get into the colleges they wanted to go to. This is all women. Whoopi didn't stop there. She went full condescending, insisting Caroline doesn't even understand what wokeness means, according to Whoopi. Listen, the only reason Caroline criticized it was because she thinks it's a terrible thing to be. That's why we fought. That's why we're fighting, so that you could stand at that podium, so that Karine Jean-Pierre could stand at that podium, so women of all colors, from all backgrounds, could bust down that door.
Trump, I would say since Trump been in office, he's had women as the press secretary, except for Sean Spicer, because he started in, I forget her name, from Arkansas, Huckabee Sanders. Sean Spicer, Huckabee Sanders. Then the next, I mean, he had what's his name, Miller, fill in a couple times, but then he had another female, and then the first press secretary he has this time is a female. Like, where are they getting this from? The word woke, I feel like Whoopi, she needs to fire everybody that produced this show. Whoopi, you don't know what woke means. Woke has nothing to do with civil rights. Constitutional civil rights. Woke has nothing to do with a meritocracy. Woke is people doing extra stuff and putting people in places that are not qualified because of the color of their skin or whatever is between their legs. Whoopi, you don't know what you're talking about. And they say it with a straight face. Matter of fact, you the reason why, for the longest, women couldn't be in these positions. Imagine you being the press secretary. You know how silly you are? Then y'all got a show full of women that's silly. Y'all women make people reconsider, should women even be doing this?
Let's be honest. Caroline knows exactly what wokeness is, which is why she called it out without hesitation. Whoopi's attempt to gaslight the audience into believing Caroline was simply throwing around buzzwords completely backfired, exposing the show's double standards. And just when it seemed the hypocrisy couldn't get any worse, Caroline took The View to task for their latest outrageous claim, trying to link an assassination attempt to Elon Musk. She didn't just push back, she dismantled their reckless narrative, making it clear that their desperation to control the conversation knows no bounds.
I don't think for you, which White House official made the decision to bar the AP reporter from the Oval Office and the diplomatic reception room last night?
Well, first of all, let me just set the record straight. It is a privilege to cover this White House. It's a privilege to be the White House press secretary. And nobody has the right to go into the Oval Office and ask the President of the United States questions. That's an invitation that is given. And there are hundreds of outlets on this campus, many of you in this room who don't have the privilege of being part of that pool every single day and getting to ask the President questions. We reserve the right to decide who gets to go into the Oval Office, and you all have credentials to be here, including the Associated Press, who is in this briefing room today.
But isn't it retaliatory in nature is the argument, because the reason that the AP was barred, which they said was because they're not using the phrase Gulf of America, they're using Gulf of Mexico in line with their standards. And so the question here is this setting a precedent that this White House will retaliate against reporters who don't use the language that you guys believe reporters should use? And how does that align with the First Amendment commitment that you were just talking about?
I was very upfront in my briefing on day one that if we feel that there are lies being pushed by outlets in this room, we are going to hold those lies accountable. And it is a fact that the body of water off the coast of Louisiana is called the Gulf of America. And I'm not sure why news outlets don't want to call it that, but that is what it is. The Secretary of Interior has made that the official designation in the Geographical Identification Name Server, and Apple has recognized that, Google has recognized that, pretty much every other outlet in this room has recognized that body of water as the Gulf of America, and it's very important to this administration that we get that right, not just for people here at home, but also for the rest of the world. Sure.
In a fiery takedown, she laid bare the hypocrisy of The View hosts, demanding accountability from others while recklessly pushing baseless accusations themselves. Caroline didn't just call them out, she made it clear that their credibility is crumbling under the weight of their own double standards. For years, The View and other legacy media outlets have pushed narratives without restraint. controlling the conversation, silencing opposition, and shaping public opinion without consequences. But with Caroline's bold stance, the era of unchecked propaganda is coming to an end. With her push for accountability, these outlets are finally being held responsible for their reporting. And let's be real, that's their worst nightmare. Without the freedom to spin the truth, their entire playbook unravels. Caroline Leavitt just flipped the script on legacy media, and The View is losing it. Let us know your thoughts in the comment, like and subscribe to the channel for more contents like this.